Alright, today I'm going to be reviewing a fitness product called the WorldFit Iso trainer. So it's just basically a big strap. If you're not familiar with isometric training, there's two types of training, basically isotonic and isometric. So isotonic would be like lifting weights up and putting them down, or anything where you're moving through a range of motion. You're concentrically shortening the muscle and you're eccentrically lengthening the muscle. That's isotonic, and then isometric is where you're staying in a certain position during the movement. And you're either resisting weights or you're moving against an immovable object. So there's two types of isometric trainings. There's yielding and overcoming. So overcoming is basically pulling or pushing against something that cannot move. So you're just trying to move it, but you can't move it because it's immovable. And you're training like maximal force production, trying to move that obstacle. And then yielding isometrics are basically just resisting gravity, or in some cases like resisting an elastic band. So if you were to do a lunge hold like this, basically gravity's pulling you down, you're resisting gravity. This is a yielding isometric. And then overcoming, like I said, be anything pulling or pushing against an immovable object. So the WorldFit Iso trainer is a unique option to do the overcoming isometric. So this is basically just a large nylon strap, and it's got two handles on it, very nice quality handles. They're like a rubber, good little grips on them, pretty easy to hold, and they do give you a good grip there. And then it's got adjustment buckles here, which are very robust and they hold it very well. So when you're trying to do some type of movement, let's say you're trying to do a lunge here and come up against it, no matter how hard I go, these buckles are holding it in place there. And this, I mean, it's just a little buckle, you pull and you can easily slide the strap through there. But you don't have to pull the buckle, but when it's locked down like that, it is basically impossible to move. I mean, there's maybe some guys out there that are super strong that would be able to move it, but I have not been able to. And as you can see, there is a lot of strap on each side, so you can do some lower body stuff like this, where you're doing a lunge type of deal like this, or a squat, or a deadlift like this, trying to pull it. And then you can lengthen it so that you can do something like an overhead press. So this would be like a low bottom position of overhead press right here. Push as hard as you can. Try to overcome that, and then you can go higher. And then you're gonna hit like the midpoint of the overhead press here. Push as hard as you can. Then you're strengthening that midpoint. So for isometric movements like this, generally the carryover of the joint angle is about 15 to 20 degrees in each direction. So let's say here, if I was trying to strengthen my overhead press, it's gonna be, so you're right here, pushing as hard as you can. You're gonna have carryover about 15 degrees to the bottom, so probably about right here, and then 15 degrees above, which would probably be about right here. So there's not a ton of carryover. If you want to work on full range of motion overhead pressing, just using overhead pressing as an example. So that's why I like to use, when I'm doing things like this, I will usually do 3 sets of 5 seconds in the bottom position here, where I'm strengthening the bottom range, and then 3 sets of 5 seconds where I'm strengthening this mid range, or maybe even raise it up a little bit higher. Or I could put it under one leg instead of 2, and then I'm strengthening the top range there. So very easy to adjust. It works really well for like lower body pulling and upper body pushing. For pulling exercises, you would obviously need to like loop it around in immovable objects, and I don't know, in my basement that's really hard to find. I do have a pull-up bar on the wall, but I would almost be hesitant to try to pull just because I could be getting a lot of force into it, and I could maybe not pull it off the wall, but I could maybe pull it down. So yeah, for upper body pushing, it works great. You could also shorten it. And then put it behind your back. And you could do like basically bench press type of stuff here, or push-up type of isos where you're trying to do pressing like that. Yeah, pulling, if you have a pole, like a basketball hoop or something like that, you could put it around and pull. That might even work too. Then you'd have to probably get into like a lunge stance so you can lean back and pull. But pushing for upper body works great, and then pulling for lower body works great too. And there is even some pushing stuff you can do. These things for the most part stay out of the way pretty well. If I'm doing something like that push-up, there is the chance that they can this position, it's touching my skin, but since they're not moving, since I'm not moving the straps back and forth, these aren't really rubbing on my skin, so that's not a big deal. Otherwise, if you want to do something like this, you could just put on a sweatshirt or some kind of long sleeve shirt that prevents it from digging into your skin. But for pretty much everything I've done, even for overhead presses, it doesn't really press into the skin of your arm, so that is not a big deal. So one thing also, I should mention, this thing was 40 bucks. So it's a pretty versatile piece of equipment with some imagination and stuff, different things. You can really get your money's worth out of this. You can do quite a few different movements out of it. And for a $40 piece of equipment that you can basically max out on, I know it's not like traditional maxing out, you're not doing a max deadlift or a max bench press, but if you have a really small space and all you have is maybe a couple dumbbells or sandbag or any type of home gym equipment, and you really can't load up super heavy, this is a way that you could incorporate some max effort stuff in. And even though, like I said, you're only getting 15 degrees range of motion up and down from this area, if you have a bunch of weights that are light, or you even have no weights, you just have body weight, and there's really no way to strengthen these range of motions, or strengthen these movements, I should say, using a lot of resistance. This is a way you can add into that, and you can just do a couple sets. Let's say right here, if you're doing like a lunge, let's say I'm going to do a couple sets right here close to the top, and then I'm going to adjust these, and then I'm going to get a little bit lower, and then I'm going to do a couple sets of that for 5 seconds, then I'm going to adjust even lower, and then go right here and do a couple sets of that. You could definitely train the full range of motion, and you can do, like I said, with this little piece of equipment, you can basically max out. So you can do max effort lifts, something that's very hard to do with other like minimal pieces of equipment. If you have like light dumbbells or sandbags or whatever, you could maybe max out the legs doing weighted pistol squats or something like that. But this is just much easier. And one thing I would recommend adding to this is the Jfit Plyo Box. So this thing is a 6-inch Plyo Box. It's hard steel, and then it's got like the plywood top there with like this hard rubber coating or whatever coating this is. So I definitely recommend. This thing was 48 bucks. So the entire package together is 88 bucks. But this thing is really nice because you can put this under here like that, and it makes a little bit more like you can do step-up versions now. Instead of just flat lunges on the ground, you can do step-up versions, and these work out really well. So I'm going to step as hard as I can, try to break through that. And this way, you're not getting like that nylon strap really torquing on the arches of your foot. So you got something to kind of cushion that, and it just makes it a lot more comfortable. And this step here, the edges on this are nice and rounded, and they don't have any jagged spots. So I've done this many times over the last 6 months, doing kind of step-up variations, or I'll do my pressing variations on here where I'll stand on here and do the pressing isos. I've done it many times, and this nylon strap looks just as good as it did the day I bought it. So yeah, if you want to add in this strap, you'll be able to do the step-up versions in addition to the lunge versions, which I just think works a little bit better. One thing I would recommend too, I've tried to do it before. I've done the step-up variations, which work really well. I've tried to do like a single leg deadlift version like this, and I don't know exactly what it is, but it's not that comfortable. Like, I recommend having a support leg there, because then your balance is going to be better. Then you can really focus on putting that hard pressure into there. I was doing a single leg deadlift like this once, and just because I'm on one leg and I'm putting so much pressure into it, one of my hip muscles like spasmed, and it really hurt for like 5 minutes, and then I laid on the ball and kind of got it to release, and it felt a little bit better, but it took a couple days before I really felt back to normal. And yeah, that little hip muscle, I don't know if it's glute medius or what it was, but that really screwed up my hip and back for a couple days. So if you're gonna do any type of like high max effort stuff, which basically this thing lends itself best for, you wanna have a nice base of support there so you can really focus on getting that full neural drive and getting that muscular tension and everything, get that force pressed into there, and not something where balance is more of an issue, because then these other muscles are going to get fatigued a lot faster than the prime movers are. So yeah, that's some of my favorite stuff to do with this setup. It is a really cool setup, and like I said, if you're in a small home gym or garage gym or whatever, you don't have really heavy weights, this is a good way to max out. Just make sure you're hitting those different angles of the movement. Like I said, this transfer is about 15 degrees up and down. So you might, to get a full workout with it, you might have to hit 2 or 3 ranges of motion, or 2 or 3 joint ranges. And don't think you have to do them all on the same workout. You know, workout A, you can maybe do the top and then the middle, and then the next workout you can do the middle and the bottom, and then the next workout you can do the bottom and the top or whatever, switch it up. Or maybe if you're doing squats or step-ups, you're really strong in the top, but you're not very strong deep. Maybe work on that deep range of motion and kind of bring that lagging spot up for you. So overall, this probably constitutes like 5% of my training. It's not something I use very often, but it is a nice little compliment, and it is nice to get just that full, like, max effort stuff. And this is like a very safe way to do it. You know, if I'm doing the step ups here, I'm going as hard as I can, all of a sudden, like, oh, it's too much, you just drop it and you're good. It's not like a max effort squat where you can't quite do it, and all of a sudden, oh, I gotta bail with 400 pounds on my back or whatever. So it is a very safe way to add in some of those really hard, really maximal ranges of motion. And this stuff is pretty challenging. Like, I know it doesn't feel super challenging, but when you're going as hard as you can, your neural drive and your demand on your body is quite hard. So that's why I don't do this a ton. Like I said, it makes up about 5% of my training. You don't want to be maxing out all the time. You want to pepper this in and use it as like the spice on your workout and not as your entire workout. But it is very powerful. Like, spices are very powerful. You know, put a little bit of spice on your dish and it can really change it a lot. So this type of thing, you sprinkle a little bit in your training, it can really take you to the next level and complement your other stuff good. Just don't abuse it. Jesus. Don't abuse it. You don't want to be maxing out all the time. Our sump pump just went off. You don't want to be maxing out all the time. Use this a little sparingly in your workouts, but it is a very powerful tool. So if you have any questions on this or this little setup I got here, or any isometrics in general, feel free to comment below and I'll do my best to get back at you guys for that. Subscribe to the channel for some more home workout videos and equipment reviews and tips and stuff like that. And I'll see you guys in the next video.